I remember the exact moment I realized my father had never seen me. Not really seen me. It was 3 months before my wedding, and I was sitting at the kitchen table in my childhood home. The same scratched oak table where I'd done homework, eaten birthday cake, and signed my college acceptance letters. The afternoon light was coming through the window the way it always did, cutting across the room in dusty gold slants. My fiancé Marcus was beside me, his hand warm on my knee under the table. We'd driven 2 hours from the city to have this conversation, and I'd been practicing what I'd say for weeks. "Dad," I started, my voice steadier than I felt. "We wanted to talk to you about the wedding fund." My father looked up from his newspaper. He was 63 then, with silver hair that he wore too long and reading glasses that were always sliding down his nose. He'd worked as an electrician for 40 years, and his hands were permanently calloused, the nails never quite clean no matter how hard he scrubbed them. "What about it?" he said, not setting the paper down completely. "I'd been saving money in that account since I was 16 years old. Every birthday, every Christmas, every graduation, my grandmother, my aunt, even my father himself had contributed to it. It was a dedicated savings account in both our names, meant for one purpose only: my wedding day. Over the years, it had grown to just over $42,000. Not a fortune, but enough for a beautiful ceremony, a decent reception, and a small honeymoon. We wanted to start planning," Marcus said, his voice gentle. "We're looking at venues for next spring, and we need to put down some deposits." My father finally set the newspaper down. He cleared his throat, a sound I knew meant he was uncomfortable. That's when I should have known. That's when the knot in my stomach should have tightened into something more than just nerves. "About that," he said, and he wouldn't meet my eyes. "Gia, honey, I need to tell you something." The kitchen suddenly felt smaller. I could hear the refrigerator humming, the clock ticking on the wall. Marcus is breathing beside me. "The money," my father said. And even now, years later, I can still hear the exact tone of his voice. The way he said it, like he was commenting on the weather. I gave it to Bryn for a moment. I didn't understand. The words didn't make sense, like he'd spoken them in a foreign language. "What?" I whispered. "Your sister needed it. She's going through a hard time." And he finally looked at me, and what I saw in his face wasn't guilt or apology. It was defensiveness. Like I was the one being unreasonable. "She deserves it, Gia. She really needed the help." I felt Marcus's hand tighten on my knee. "That was my wedding fund," I said, and my voice sounded strange, distant. "That money was mine. Grandma gave me that money. Aunt Patricia, it was in my name too," my father interrupted. "Technically, I had every right?" The word came out sharp, cutting through the warm afternoon air. "Dad, I'm getting married in 3 months. You'll figure it out. You always do." He picked up his newspaper again, like the conversation was over. Like he'd just told me he couldn't make it to dinner, not that he'd stolen $42,000 from me. "Bryn really needed it. She's your sister. You should be happy to help her. I should tell you about Bryn. My sister is 2 years younger than me, and she's been the favorite since the day she was born. That's not bitterness talking, it's just fact. The way some families have a dog and others have a cat. Our family had a favorite, and it was Bryn. She was born premature, spent the first 3 months of her life in the NICU, and my parents nearly lost her twice. I think my father never recovered from that fear. From the moment she came home, she was precious in a way I never had been. Delicate, special, deserving of protection. I was 7 when she was born. I remember being told to be quiet, to be careful, to not upset her. I remember learning to make myself smaller so she could take up more space. It became a pattern. Bryn wanted dance lessons, Dad paid for them. Bryn wanted a car at 16, Dad bought her a used Honda. Bryn got into her third choice college, Dad took out a loan for her tuition. I paid for my own dance lessons with babysitting money. I bought my own car at 22. I got a full scholarship to college because I knew no one was going to pay my way, and I never complained. I told myself it was fine. I told myself I was independent, strong, self-sufficient. I told myself a lot of lies, but this was different. "What did she need it for?" I asked, my voice hollow. My father shifted in his chair. "She's starting a business." a lifestyle coaching practice. She's really talented, Gia. She just needs the capital to get started. She's 26 years old and she's never held a job for more than 8 months, I said. This is her 5th business idea in 3 years. That's not fair. You gave her my wedding money for another one of her schemes. They're not schemes. My father's voice rose. Why can't you be supportive? Why can't you be happy for your sister? I stared at him. Really stared at him. He believed it. He genuinely believed that I was the problem here, that I was being selfish, that I should be grateful for the opportunity to sacrifice for Bryn again. I'm your daughter too, I said quietly. My father looked away. You're getting married to a man with a good job. Marcus can provide for you. Bryn doesn't have anyone. She needs this money more than you do. That's when Marcus stood up. I'd known Marcus for years. We'd met at a community garden where I volunteered on weekends, both reaching for the same packet of tomato seeds. He was a civil engineer who designed bridges. A quiet man who thought carefully before he spoke and who had proposed to me on a regular Tuesday night in our apartment. No fanfare. Just honest love. I'd never heard him raise his voice. Not once. But when he stood up from that kitchen table, there was something in his posture that made my father shrink back. Mr. Chen, Marcus said, and his voice was calm but hard as steel. That money was not yours to give away. Now wait just a minute, I'm not finished. Marcus's hand was still on my shoulder, steady and warm. You took money that was given to your daughter, for a specific purpose, by people who loved her and wanted to celebrate her future. You took that money and you gave it to someone else. That's theft. I have every legal right. I don't care about your legal right. I care about what's morally right. And what you've done is wrong. My father stood up too, his face flushing red. You don't talk to me like that in my own home, then let's talk about what happens next. Marcus's voice didn't rise, but it filled the kitchen anyway. Gia and I are leaving now. We're going to plan our wedding with our own money, and we're going to have a beautiful day without you. Without me? You're not invited, I said, and I was surprised by how steady my voice was. You made your choice. You chose Bryn. Again, drop your city in the comments. Let's see how far this story travels. We left. We drove 2 hours back to the city in almost complete silence, Marcus's hand holding mine across the center console. When we got home to our small apartment with its second-hand furniture and plants on every windowsill, I finally cried. I cried for the money. I cried for the wedding I'd been planning in my head since I was a little girl. But mostly I cried for something that had probably been broken long before that afternoon, the relationship with my father that I'd been pretending was okay. Marcus held me until I had no tears left. Then he made tea, the way he always did when I was upset, and we sat on our balcony and watched the city lights come on one by one. We'll figure it out, he said. We don't need a big wedding. I wanted my dad to walk me down the aisle, I whispered. I wanted him to be there. I know. Why am I never enough for him? Marcus pulled me closer. You're enough for me. You're more than enough. We got married 3 months later in the community garden where we met. 40 people came, friends, co-workers, my aunt and grandmother. My mother came too, though she and my father had divorced years ago. She'd heard what happened and had held me while I cried, then quietly wrote us a check for $5,000 she probably couldn't afford. It wasn't the wedding I'd imagined as a little girl. We had folding chairs and string lights and a cake from the bakery down the street. My grandmother's neighbor, who was ordained online, performed the ceremony. I wore a simple white dress I found on sale. Marcus wore a suit he already owned, and it was perfect. It was absolutely perfect, until Bryn showed up. I saw her before Marcus did. I was standing under an arch covered in morning glories, holding a bouquet of sunflowers and wildflowers, and I looked up to see my sister walking through the garden gate. She was wearing white, a cream-colored cocktail dress, technically, but close enough to white that everyone turned to stare. She had a designer bag on her arm and sunglasses perched on her head, and she walked up the aisle like she was the one getting married. My Aunt Patricia gasped. My mother stood up, her face going pale. Hi everyone, Bryn said, waving like she was arriving at a casual brunch. Sorry I'm late. Traffic was terrible. She hadn't arrived. I hadn't invited her. She made her way to the front row and sat down in a seat that was being saved for Marcus's brother, who was running late. She smiled at me like nothing was wrong. Marcus leaned in and whispered, "Do you want me to have her removed?" I wanted to say yes. I wanted her gone. But this was my wedding day, and I refused to let her ruin it. I refused to give her that power. "No," I whispered back. "Let's just do this." So we did. We said our vows. We exchanged rings. We kissed while our friends cheered and threw flower petals. And through it all, Bryn sat in the front row, checking her phone. At the reception, just appetizers and drinks in the gardens-covered pavilion. Bryn cornered me by the gift table. "Nice wedding," she said, and there was something in her voice that made my skin crawl. "Small but nice. What are you doing here, Bryn?" "I'm your sister." "Where else would I be?" She picked up a spring roll from a passing tray. "Dad wanted to come, you know. He's really hurt that you didn't invite him. He stole from me. He helped me. There's a difference." She ate the spring roll, dabbed her lips with a napkin. "My business is doing really well, by the way. I already have 3 clients. Bryn, you should be happy for me. If you weren't so selfish, you'd understand that I needed that money more than you needed some fancy party." I felt something crack inside me. Years of being second, of being overlooked, of being told I should be grateful for the scraps I got, it all came rushing to the surface. "Get out," I said quietly. "What?" "Get out of my wedding. Get out of my life. I'm done." Bryn laughed, actually laughed. "You don't mean that." "I've never meant anything more." "Gia, come on. Don't be dramatic. We're family. You're my father's family. You've never been mine." I walked away. I didn't wait to see if she left. I went back to Marcus, to our friends, to the life I was building that had nothing to do with people who only saw me when they needed something. Bryn stayed for another 20 minutes, making small talk with guests who were too polite to ignore her. Then she left, and I didn't watch her go. 6 months passed. Marcus and I settled into married life. We paid off the credit card debt from the wedding. We adopted a cat. We planted a vegetable garden on our balcony. We were happy. I didn't speak to my father. He called a few times, left messages that I deleted without listening to. My grandmother told me he'd been asking about me, that he wanted to talk. I told her I had nothing to say. Then on a Tuesday morning in October, my phone rang. It was my mother. "Gia," she said, and her voice was shaking. "It's your father. He's in the hospital. Heart attack. Massive. He'd collapsed at a job site, been rushed to the hospital, gone into surgery. He was stable, but it was serious." I went. Of course I went. Whatever hurt existed between us, he was still my father. The hospital room was small and white and smelled like disinfectant. My father looked smaller than I remembered. Older, his face gray against the pillows. Bryn was already there, sitting in a chair by his bed, her eyes red. "Gia," my father said when he saw me. His voice was weak. "You came." Of course I came. He reached for my hand. I let him take it. "I'm sorry," he said. "I should have said it before, but I'm sorry. For the wedding money, for everything." It was what I'd wanted to hear for 6 months. But now, standing in that hospital room with machines beeping and my father's hand cold in mine, it wasn't enough. "Why?" I asked. Why was it always Bryn? Why was I never enough? My father's eyes filled with tears. "You were always enough. You were always so strong, so capable. You didn't need me the way Bryn did. Everyone needs their father." I know that now." He squeezed my hand. "I'm sorry I didn't see it before." Bryn stood up. "Dad needs to rest. The doctors said not to stress him." "I'm not stressing him, you are." "You always do." Bryn crossed her arms. "He just had a heart attack, Gia. Can't you think about someone other than yourself for once?" I stared at my sister. Really looked at her. She was 26 years old, and she still thought the world owed her everything. She still thought she was the victim in every story. And I was tired. "No," I said. "What?" "No, Bryn. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not playing your game. I'm not accepting your narrative. And I'm not letting you make me feel guilty for existing." I looked at my father. "I hope you get better. I really do. But I can't keep setting myself on fire to keep you both warm. I left. Again, this time, Marcus was waiting for me in the parking lot. He'd driven straight from work when I called him, still wearing his work boots, and when he saw my face, he just opened his arms. "I'm proud of you," he said into my hair. "For what?" "For choosing yourself." My father recovered. He went home after 2 weeks, started cardiac rehab, cut back on the fried food. He called me once more, left a message saying he loved me and wanted to make things right. I didn't call back. Not yet. Maybe someday, but not yet. 3 months after my father's heart attack, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Is this Gia?" "Yes, this is Michelle Bradford from the state attorney's office. I'm calling about a complaint filed against your sister, Bryn Chen." My stomach dropped. "What kind of complaint?" "Fraud. Multiple clients have reported that Miss Chen took payment for lifestyle coaching services that were never rendered. We've been investigating her business practices, and we'd like to ask you some questions about money that was transferred to her account earlier this year, the wedding fund." They were investigating Bryn, and they traced the money. I told them everything. About the money, about my father's access to the account, about how it was supposed to be for my wedding. The investigator took notes, asked careful questions, and then said something that made my blood run cold. "Miss Chen, your father didn't have the legal right to give that money to your sister. That account was designated for a specific purpose, with multiple contributors. What he did constitutes misappropriation of funds." "What does that mean?" "It means you could press charges against your father, or against your sister, or both." I sat with that information for a week. Marcus didn't tell me what to do, he just held space for me to think, to feel, to decide. In the end, I didn't press charges, but I did make a police report, and I did cooperate with the fraud investigation. Not out of revenge, but because Bryn had scammed other people too, and they deserved justice. She was eventually charged with wire fraud and theft by deception. The trial was quick. She'd been sloppy, hadn't covered her tracks, had spent money she claimed was for business expenses on designer clothes and trips to Cabo. She was found guilty on 6 counts. My father called me the day before her sentencing. I answered. "This time, please," he said, and he was crying. "Please ask them to go easy on her. She's your sister. She made mistakes, but she doesn't deserve jail." "Dad," I said, and my voice was gentle but firm, "I'm not doing this. I can't save her from herself. Neither can you. But she's an adult who made adult choices, and those choices have consequences." Bryn was sentenced to 18 months in federal prison and ordered to pay restitution to her victims. My wedding fund, what was left of it after she'd spent it, was returned to me. $28,000. Marcus and I used it for a down payment on a house. A small one, with good bones in a backyard where we could plant a real garden. We moved in on a Saturday in spring, with help from friends and my mother and my grandmother. My father came to the housewarming party. He stood in the doorway, holding a bottle of wine and a card, looking uncertain. We hadn't spoken much since Bryn's sentencing. He'd been angry at first, blamed me for not helping her, for testifying at her trial. But time had passed, and maybe he'd started to see things differently. "I wasn't sure you'd want me here," he said. "I wasn't sure either," I admitted. He handed me the card. Inside was a check for $10,000. "I can't give you back the time I wasted," he said, "or the trust I broke, but I can give you this. It's not charity, and it's not guilt money. It's what I should have done from the beginning, supporting my daughter's future." I looked at the check, then at my father. He'd aged years in the past months. His hair was completely white now, and there were new lines around his eyes. "Thank you," I said. "That's it. Just thank you. What else do you want me to say?" He was quiet for a moment. "I want you to forgive me, but I know I haven't earned that yet." "No?" I agreed. "You haven't. Can I work on it?" I thought about it. About all the years of being second, of being overlooked, of being told to be smaller so Bryn could be bigger. About the wedding fund and the betrayal and the pain of realizing your parent doesn't see you. But I also thought about grace, about second chances, about the fact that people can change, even if it takes them 63 years to start. "You can work on it," I said finally, "but it's going to take time." And I need you to understand that things are different now. I'm not going to shrink myself anymore. Not for you. Not for Bryn. Not for anyone. My father nodded. I understand. And Gia? For what it's worth, you were always enough. I'm sorry I never made you feel that way. He came into the house. He met my friends, admired the garden we were planning, sat in the backyard and drank wine and made small talk. It was awkward, and there were silences that felt heavy. But it was a start. Marcus found me later, washing dishes in our new kitchen. How are you? He asked, wrapping his arms around me from behind. I'm okay, I said. And I meant it. I'm actually okay. That was big, letting him in. It was. I turned in his arms. But I'm not doing it for him. I'm doing it for me. I'm choosing to leave the door open, but I'm also choosing to protect my peace. He can come in, but only if he respects the boundaries. Marcus kissed my forehead. You're amazing. You know that. I'm just trying to figure it out as I go. Aren't we all? I visited Bryn once in prison. She's angry at first, blames me for everything, says I ruined her life. I let her talk, let her rage, and when she finally runs out of words, I say the only thing I came to say. I hope you find yourself in here. I hope you figure out who you are when you're not playing victim. Because I think there's a good person somewhere inside you. You just have to stop running from her. She doesn't respond. I don't expect her to. I leave. And I don't look back. Years pass. Marcus and I have a daughter, then a son. We raise them in that house with the big backyard, teach them to garden and to be kind and to stand up for themselves. We teach them that love isn't about being perfect, it's about showing up, doing the work, and choosing each other every day. My father becomes a better grandfather than he was a father. He comes to every birthday, every school play, every little league game. He brings my daughter books and teaches my son how to throw a baseball. He never misses a moment. We never talk about Bryn. It's an unspoken agreement between us. She gets out of prison eventually. I hear about it from my grandmother. She moves to another state, starts over. I don't reach out. Neither does she. Sometimes I wonder if we'll ever have a relationship again. But mostly, I don't think about it. I've built a life that doesn't have room for people who make me feel small. On my 10th wedding anniversary, Marcus takes me back to the community garden. It's early morning, and the light is golden, and we walk through the same paths where we got married. Do you ever regret it? He asks, having such a small wedding? Never, I say. It was perfect, even with everything that happened. Especially with everything that happened. It taught me what really matters. He pulls me close. And what's that? This, us. Choosing love even when it's hard. Building something real. We stand there, in the garden where our life together began, and I think about how far I've come. How I learned to stop waiting for my father to see me and started seeing myself instead. How I learned that sometimes the family you're born into isn't your real family is the one you choose. I think about the girl I was, sitting at that kitchen table, hearing her father say she deserves it about someone else, and I think about the woman I am now, standing in a garden with her husband, knowing deep in her bones that she deserves everything, not because someone else said so, but because she finally believed it herself.